Okay, this video is an introduction to Adobe Flash, and as part of that introduction we're going to learn to animate a bouncing ball and move it around the screen. So to start off with, obviously start Adobe Flash, and the version we're using, if you can just see here, is CS6. So once you've got this screen opened, click Create New ActionScript 3 file. So very new screen layout here in terms of we still have a menu bar at the top, and the way things are laid out on screen might be slightly different for you, so it probably best if you choose the classic view like I've got here, so that everything lays out in the same fashion. So what we have obviously is the menu bar, a tool palette here, the timeline, and a stage, and the stage is where we do our animation. The white area is where we see things moving around. The timeline here is split into individual little, what looks like rectangles. These are called frames, and if you think of a frame as an individual picture or snapshot of a moving image such as a video, then if you put all those snapshots together, a bit like a flick book, then it looks like we've got movement. So down here it tells you that there are 24 frames per second. So this area here, from frame 1 to frame 24, represents 1 second in time. From frame 48 through to frame 1 represents 2 seconds, and so on. So as we animate, we just create little snapshots of whatever it is we want to be seen. So let's get started. On the tool palette you'll probably have a rectangle tool visible. I need to change that to an oval tool, and the way we turn an oval into a circle is to hold the shift down. So if I now hold shift down there, you see I've drawn a circle. Now with Flash, what you have to be aware of is that there are two parts to a drawing. So if I go to my selection tool now, you'll see over here I've got something called a stroke colour and a fill colour. Now at the moment they're both the same. If I just pick that up and move it, you can see that my object is made of a fill and a stroke. Now it's feasible to change your stroke colour or your fill colour at any time, but for the purpose of what we want to do today, we do not want any stroke. We're only going to work with the fill. So a blue fill or any colour you like is fine. Now with my selection tool I'm going to drag over everything that I've just drawn to select it and press delete. So let's get started. I'm now going to draw with my oval tool, with a blue fill and no stroke, a small ball, a small circle. So shift to make sure it's completely round. That'll do like that. Okay. Now this ball has made our first frame fill in. It was clear before, and now there's that black spot there, which means it's a keyframe. Keyframes are the way we control where we start and finish our animation, and what we're going to do is get Flash to draw all the intermediate parts in between the keyframes. So I want the ball to drop down to the floor here, and I want it to do that in about half a second. So if you remember, there are 24 frames per second, so I'm going to say at 12 frames I want to insert a new keyframe. Now the easiest way to insert a new keyframe is to press F6. So if I do that now that I've clicked on that 12th frame, press F6, you can see it puts another keyframe in there for me. Now if I go to 24 frames and press F6 again, or insert keyframe from the right click option, it will now put another keyframe in there for me. Now the reason I've done that is because I want the ball to end up exactly where it started. So it starts there, it finishes there, but here in the middle, and this is where I'm going to use my selection tool, I want it to be down here at the bottom. Okay, so it starts at the top, it goes to the bottom, and it goes back up again. Now if I click between the two keyframes and say create classic tween, that was a right click by the way, create classic tween, you'll see that each frame has been filled in for me with a gradual progression of the ball from one position to another. And do the same between the other two keyframes, create classic tween, and tween means in between, so it's doing the bits in between for you. So now we've got a ball that goes from the top down to the bottom and back up again. Okay. Now if I press Control Enter, it will play that for me. Okay. Over and over and over again. So it's probably at this stage that's a good idea to say File, Save As, and save this as ball or ball 1. For me it's ball demo, and save that to a suitable folder. Okay, now that ball's pretty boring. It doesn't really do a great deal other than zoom up and down. So what we're going to do now is have it drop down to the bottom, squish, and then bounce back up again to hit the roof. We could have it squishing on the roof again if we wished. So let's do that. So again, let's have it dropping over 12 frames, sorry. That's going to take me to 36 frames, F6 for a new keyframe. That's going to move it down to the bottom. Now I could worry about it coming back up again, but we'll do that a bit later. So at that position, I'm going to have it move directly down and hit the bottom. So that's the bottom of the stage. Now because of the resolution I'm working at here, you can't quite see the outside of the stage, but you will be able to on yours. So once it gets to there, I would like it to squish down flat and take about 4 frames for that. So press F6 once I've selected frame 40, and then another 4 frames later to come back up again from being squished back to its original size. So click on frames 44 and press F6. Now I've got the ball at the top, it's coming down to there, so I can press my classic tween in between those. It's coming down. Now here I want it to squish, so on frame 40 I need to give it its squished shape. So now I'm going to use my free transform tool. Remember, I'm on frame 40 over here. Click on that and I start to get some handles for the ball. Now if I just use the upper handle and don't use any other keys, you'll see that the ball compresses but it lifts off the ground. Don't want that. So if I press Alt button, that's next to the space bar, and now drag with the handle, you'll see it squished. Take my finger off the Alt because this time I do want both sides to move, and of course as it squishes it's got to get a little bit fatter as well down to there. So now I've got my ball coming down, landing. I then want it squished, and then I want it to grow again before it takes off. Now I want Flash to do the in-between frames to make it grow again. So right click, create classic tween, right click, create classic tween. Okay, so we've now got a ball that's going down, up, and this time it's going down, hits the bottom, starts to squish, and you can do this over more frames to make it more realistic if you like, and grows again. Now we need over 12 frames. If you remember, that's how long it took to get from bottom to top. So it's 44 plus 12, 56 frames, F6 to put a new keyframe in, and now I'm going to move it back up to the top and then have it do exactly the same thing again over 4 frames squishing and then 4 frames coming back again. So move my timeline over, 56 to 60, F6 and F6 again because I want the position it's going to finish in there. So I've got my start position, let's have that classic tween in there, so it's going up. I've got my start position up there, and it's going to start to squish to there, and then it's going to grow back again to there. So 60 frames, free transform tool. It's not working because I haven't clicked on the actual frame itself. So 60 frames, click on that, hold the Alt button down so that the other side stays static, let go of the Alt button, make it wider. Use your classic tween to fill the bits in between. Okay, so now we've got the ball starting at the top, going down, squishing, going up, squishing, back to normal, and then of course it will repeat again. But if you remember, it's going to repeat like we did first of all without the squish. So it's this bit here where it starts to squish I want to keep. I don't want to keep this stuff here. So what I'm doing is selecting those frames 1 to 24, they're all selected. Now I'm going to get rid of them. Right click, remove frames. So it doesn't look like everything's much happened there, but everything here shifted across to the left. So if I run through this now with the scrubber bar, so this is the scrubber bar, the red point here takes you through one frame at a time, hits the bottom, starts to squish, that's our lowest point, goes back up again, takes off, squishes at the top, and back to its original position. So I'm hoping that that frame number 40 there is exactly the same as frame number 1. Ooh, slightly different, but we can cope with that. So if I press Control and Enter again, so hold Control down, press Enter, it will export the movie, and now you get your animated ball. Okay, stop that. Now with that technique you could add another ball. If you want to add another ball, you have to add a new layer. Okay, you can call this ball 1 and the other one ball 2. Whatever you do, each animated item needs to be on its own layer. Something perhaps a little more simple than that would be to have the ball bouncing around the stage. Now the trick is to make sure that wherever you finish is always exactly the same as where you start. So it may be that you start off by shifting over a couple of hundred frames and pressing F6 once you've got your ball drawn in. You'll have to experiment, you'll have to use trial and error to work this out for yourself, but that's the key advice. When you want something to loop continuously, such as a ball bouncing around, and it may bounce up, down, round, wherever you want it to go, then think about always having your first frame in exactly the same position as your last. One other thing, when you are using the free transform tool, you don't just have to use squish, you can use a skew to give an effect if you've got the ball coming in at an angle and then bouncing. Okay, so it's just something to experiment with and try to make your bouncing ball look as realistic as possible. Good luck, enjoy, and if you get really good at this, what I'd like to see is a red ball and a blue ball bouncing around and hitting each other and rebounding off each other. Now don't try and do too much when you're doing that, but remember, red ball will have its own layer and you'll then have a blue ball layer, and each one needs to be set up in its own right and animated in its own right. Okay, so by using the naming convention, it will help you stay organized. It looks like you've got some frames in here. These are just blank frames. Treat it exactly the same way as you would with the other ones. So change your fill color, change to red, use your oval tool, hold shift down to make it a complete circle. Different sizes or same size, doesn't matter. And now again you can press F6 and have the ball move into a different position. Now remember what I said, start position is always the same as the finish position, so I'm just going to press F6 there as well. Now if I just shift this ball here up to there, it's not a realistic bounce, I know, but I can animate between the two with classic tweens. So now you see my red ball and my blue ball are both animated. Okay, and now I can work on that to try to get them to collide and rebound appropriately. So good luck. If you get stuck, always just highlight this stuff and delete it, or just start again. It doesn't take too much. Okay, over to you.